My name is RosalieThomas. I started with HAP as a volunteer in the 90s, and at this point, I am the senior clinical consultant and project coordinator for HAP. One of my whys about HAP and about EMDR therapy was that after the first training that we did in Mumbai, India, there was a huge earthquake in Bhuj in the Gujarat region. That was in 2001. We had trained about 20 to 30 clinicians just in the part one training. Those clinicians formed teams, and over the 6 months that followed, went into Gujarat to treat the people from the earthquake. When they got there, they found that there were temperatures of 120 degrees, that children were sitting outside because they were afraid to go back in the buildings. Children were wetting their beds still several months after. They had to wait for the temperatures to come down to winter before they could go in and intervene. And they were having difficulties in schools. And so they found a lot of problems following the earthquake. That team of brand new clinicians over the course of the next 6 months treated 16,000 children with group protocols. They pulled some out for individual work, but overall they used that group protocol and treated 16,000 children. That still gives me goosebumps when I tell that story. And that's one of the things I go back to again and again when I think about what is my why. That story is so inspirational for me, for those clinicians who took that on and accomplished that. HAP for me is a community with heart. They respond to natural and human disasters. They train clinicians in EMDR therapy who wouldn't otherwise have access to training. They prepare clinicians for crisis response. And those are all really important, but they also enable that Shapiro effect, that dropping the pebble in the pond and seeing the ripples. And then as HAP continues to grow, those ripples turn to waves. And at this point, it's people think of tsunami often as negative, but it's almost a tsunami or a tidal wave of interest and growth in therapy that we know is really effective. So that's my why. Those people who don't have access to training can learn EMDR. Those people who might not have access to treatment get served. Those people who are living in situations that are really difficult, suffering situations, can have therapy that increases their resilience and their coping skills to go on in those situations. So in that way, HAP helps people with preparation and response. And those things are both so important to improving the quality of life for people who live in communities and to individuals. So that's my why about HAP. I'm very committed to that mission of growth and capacity building, whether it's a community or an individual that you're working with. HAP was asking for somebody to go to Bangladesh on a project, and they needed a medical person to go along. I am also a nurse, and so our youngest child had just graduated from college, and I thought, I can do that. So on that trip, I met a number of people, one of whom was a person who was actually working in India and was affiliated with the colleague that I mentioned earlier. And so that developed into many trips to India and to Asia to help develop capacity there. Our colleagues in India, along with the support from Dr. Shapiro and from trauma recovery, certainly a lot of support from trauma recovery, those colleagues started working collaboratively with each other to build capacity within their own community, within their own country, and then eventually formed EMDR India. Then they formed with the other countries around them in Asia, they formed EMDR Asia. And so that organization, in terms of capacity building, has grown from one individual with a question, how do I do this? To a multinational regional EMDR association that has not only their own trainings, but also their own trauma response networks, and they respond to natural disasters all over Asia. The same is true with different individuals. I happen to be the one who was connected most with Asia, but the same has been true with other individuals who are connected with the development of EMDR in Europe or development of EMDR in Africa, and certainly also in our southern neighbors in Latin America and South America. So that's been an ongoing capacity building mission that started with Dr. Shapiro early on. And as part of that ripple effect, the Shapiro effect that we've been talking about, it just continues to grow in that way. HAP gets its funding from a number of resources. First and foremost, we get funding from our community. And so people make donations from the EMDR community. People oftentimes will, or organizations might give us a grant for some of the work that we do. A great deal of our funding comes from our trainings, and we offer those at low cost, but still they help support the trauma response networks. And of course, we hold fundraisers all the time. We are always asking for donations from people who can afford and are committed to the mission of HAP. Well, if we had unlimited funds, which would be a wonderful dream to have, I would hope that we would continue to develop our faculty academy. We have a very strong training program for clinicians wanting to provide therapy in their practice situations. And oftentimes those are services to not only underserved clinicians, but underserved clients. And so continuing that mission to rejuvenate our TRNs. We have wonderful volunteers who want to help when something happens in their community or something happens in their country or internationally. And so to be able to have the resources for those people, both in terms of education, getting them prepared to respond to those situations, and then to support them during that response, because those things are also expensive. So that would be a wonderful future. The other one would be, as I said, to work more collaboratively with other organizations worldwide to help develop that capacity, but also to help develop preparedness around the world. We see many changes happening in terms of climate disasters as well as human-made disasters. And there's going to be a great need for community preparedness. And I think that HAP can contribute a great deal to that if we had the funds to do so. And so part of the Shapiro effect, I think, is feeling her passion, feeling her commitment, and the mission to carry that on. And so she really implored each of us to do whatever we could to carry that forward. I happened to be alone with her in the elevator at one point early in my EMDR career, and I said, almost dumbstruck, I said, "I'm so impressed with what you've done by what you observed, just that chance observation and what you've done with it and what you've created out of it." And she looked right at me and she said, "Well, you would have done the same if it had been given to you." And it was that kind of, oh, it has been given to me, and now I have an obligation. And so I think that's a part of the ripple effect, that she was just so inspirational in that way and confident that people would carry on this important work.